Jack Rivera's hands were steady, calloused from years of shaping wood in his Portsbury, Maine, workshop. At 38, he ran a small carpentry business, fixing broken furniture and building custom pieces for neighbors who valued his quiet reliability. Portsbury was a tight-knit coastal town, the kind where everyone knew your business, whether you liked it or not. Jack liked it just fine, until 3 months ago, when his wife Laura started coming home late, her excuses flimsier than cheap plywood. It began with small things. Laura, a human resources manager at a local insurance firm, mentioned a new book club that kept her out past 10. She'd breeze through the door, her hair slightly mussed, claiming she'd been debating novels with friends. But Jack noticed the scent clinging to her, a sharp, unfamiliar cologne that wasn't hers or his. Then there were the girls' nights, where she'd return with no stories to share, her phone buzzing with messages she'd quickly silence. Once, he caught her slipping a new dress into the laundry, tag still attached, hidden in the hamper like a guilty secret. Jack wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. He measured twice, cut once, his mantra for wood and life. But the signs piled up like sawdust. 3 months of late nights, vague explanations, and a growing distance between them in their shared bed. Laura's laughter, once warm, now felt rehearsed. Her eyes darted away when he asked about her day. And then there was Marcos. Marcos Delgado, the brother of Jack's business partner, Tommy, had helped them refinance their house 2 years back. He was a slick-talking real estate agent with a flashy smile and a reputation for charm. Jack remembered him sitting at their kitchen table, sipping coffee, preaching about family values, while his eyes lingered on Laura a bit too long. Jack had brushed it off then. Now it gnawed at him. The tipping point came on a chilly October evening. Laura was getting ready for another book club meeting, spending an hour in front of the mirror. Jack leaned against the bedroom doorframe, watching her fuss with her hair. "Big night discussing literature?" he asked, keeping his tone light. Laura didn't look up. "Yeah, we're diving into a new novel. Modern fiction. Really deep stuff." Her voice was clipped, like she was reciting lines. "Sounds intense," Jack said, crossing his arms. "What's the book?" She froze for a split second, her hand pausing mid-brush. "It's called The Awakening, by Kate Chopin." Jack nodded, though his gut twisted. He'd read The Awakening in high school. It wasn't modern fiction, and it ended with the heroine drowning herself. "Great choice. Hope your discussion has a happier ending than that one." Laura's smile faltered, her fingers tightening around her purse. "I'll be late. Don't wait up." She grabbed her keys and hurried out, the front door slamming behind her. Jack stood in the quiet house, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. He walked to the kitchen window and watched her silver Honda back out of the driveway, its taillights glowing red as it turned left toward downtown, toward Marcos's apartment above his real estate office. He didn't need to follow her to know where she was going, but he needed proof. Down in his basement workshop, surrounded by the scent of cedar and varnish, Jack poured himself a bourbon and opened his laptop. As the primary account holder for their phone plan, he had access to call logs. What he found made his jaw clench. Dozens of late-night calls to Marcos's number, some lasting over an hour. Text messages, too, hundreds of them, sent during work hours when Laura claimed to be swamped. Then there was the credit card statement, a $200 charge for a hotel in Brunswick last Tuesday, when Laura said she was visiting her sister in Portland. Jack leaned back in his chair, the bourbon burning his throat. He wasn't angry, not yet. Anger was a dull blade. He preferred precision. Like any good carpenter, he'd study the problem, measure the angles, and build a plan. Laura thought she was clever, but she'd underestimated him. So had Marcos. His phone buzzed with a text from Laura. "Meeting's running late. Don't wait up." Jack typed back, "Love you too, Han." He set the phone down and stared at his tools hanging neatly on the pegboard. Hammers, chisels, saws, each one designed to fix or break something. Tonight, they felt like an extension of his resolve. Jack knew Portsbury's rhythm. Gossip spread faster than a nor'easter, and the Driftwood pub was its epicenter. He grabbed his jacket and drove the short distance to the weathered bar, its neon sign flickering in the fog. Inside, the place smelled of fried fish and stale beer, filled with the usual crowd of fishermen and locals. Red, the bartender, was wiping down the counter, his gray beard stained yellow from years of smoking. "Jack, long time no see," Red called, pouring a bourbon without asking. "Rough day. Just needed a change of scenery," Jack said, sliding onto a stool. He scanned the room, spotting Harvey Daniels, a grizzled lobsterman nursing a beer. Harvey caught his eye and nodded. Heard anything interesting lately? Jack asked, keeping his voice casual. Red smirked, polishing a glass with unnecessary focus. Oh, you know how it is. Small town, big mouths. Word is, Marcos Delgado's been flapping his gums about some married woman he's seeing. Real proud of himself, too. Jack's grip tightened on his glass, but his face stayed neutral. That's so? Harvey leaned in, his voice low. Tommy, his brother, works on my boat sometimes. Says Marcos is bragging about a classy lady who's way out of her husband's league. Calls the guy a nobody who doesn't suspect a thing. Jack took a slow sip, letting the burn steady him. Sounds like Marcos thinks he's untouchable. Jack Rivera's workshop in Portsbury, Maine, was his sanctuary, a place where he could plane away doubts and hammer out solutions. But now, as he sat under the fluorescent glow, his laptop open to a spreadsheet of Laura's phone records, the space felt like a war room. 3 months of lies had stacked up like warped boards, and Jack was ready to start cutting through them. The GPS tracker he'd ordered sat on his workbench, a small black box promising answers. He wasn't a spy, just a man who needed the truth to be as solid as oak. Laura's late-night book club excuses had grown bolder. Last week, she'd claimed her group was dissecting 50 Shades of Grey, snapping at Jack when he raised an eyebrow. You wouldn't get it, she'd said, her tone sharp. It's about intellectual stimulation. Jack had nodded, but the phrase stuck like a splinter. Intellectual stimulation. That's what she called it. He saw it differently. A web of deception spun with Marcos Delgado, the real estate agent who thought he could charm his way into Jack's life and out again without consequence. Jack's first move was to confirm the pattern. He called Liam Rodriguez, an old high school buddy who ran a computer repair shop downtown. Liam owed Jack for a kitchen remodel done at cost, and his tech skills were sharper than a router bit. Over coffee at a diner on Main Street, Jack laid out his suspicions. Laura's been cagey, he said, sliding a printout of the hotel charge across the table. I need to know where she's going. Can you help? Liam adjusted his glasses, scanning the paper. This is rough, man. You sure you want to dig into this? I'm sure I can't ignore it, Jack replied, his voice steady. It's my car, my name on the title. I just need to know. Liam nodded, pocketing the GPS tracker. I'll set it up tonight. Magnetic mount, real-time tracking through an app. Where's her car usually parked? Garage, every night, Jack said. She's out at another book club tonight. Should be at Marcos's place by 7. That evening, Laura left the house with a quick, don't wait up, her keys jangling as she hurried out. Jack watched her Honda pull away, then texted Liam. Go time. By 7:30, Liam was in the garage, crawling under the car with a flashlight. Woolwell's perfect, he whispered over the phone. No one'll see it unless they're looking. 5 minutes later, the tracker was live, a blinking dot on Jack's phone showing Laura's car parked behind Marcos's office downtown. The app was a revelation. Over the next week, Jack watched Laura's movements unfold like a blueprint. Tuesdays and Thursdays, her gym sessions led straight to Marcos's apartment, each visit lasting exactly 2 hours. Wednesdays, she'd detour to his place during shopping trips. Fridays, her girls' nights started and ended at his address, with occasional stops at restaurants. Real dates, Jack realized, his stomach twisting. The worst was a Tuesday afternoon when the dot lingered at the Coastal Inn, a hotel 20 minutes outside Portsbury. Laura had texted him that day, stuck at work with quarterly reports. Jack drove to the hotel, parking across the street. At 5:30, Laura and Marcos emerged, laughing, her hand in his. She wore the blue dress Jack had bought for their last anniversary. Back at the Driftwood pub, Jack sought more intel. The bar was a hub of local gossip, and Red, the bartender, had ears sharper than a tack. Over a bourbon, Jack probed carefully. Heard anything about Marcos lately? Red smirked, wiping down the bar. Guy's been strutting around like he owns the place. Harvey overheard him at the docks, bragging to some buddies about a sophisticated woman he's seeing. Says her husband's too busy with his hands in the dirt to notice. Harvey, the lobsterman, chimed in from his stool. Tommy, his brother, was pissed. Told Marcos to shut it, but he kept going. Said the guy's a nobody, doesn't deserve her. Jack's knuckles whitened around his glass, but he kept his cool. Sounds like Marcos is asking for trouble. Trouble finds guys like him, Red said, pouring another shot. Town's small. People talk. Jack needed more than talk. He enlisted Tyler Morrison, a burly construction worker with a knack for creative problem-solving and a loose sense of boundaries. Over beers at the Driftwood, Jack outlined his plan. I want them to know I'm onto them, but not yet. I need to control the reveal. Something public, legal, and sharp enough to sting. Tyler grinned, cracking his knuckles. My kind of project. What's the play? Jack pulled out a notebook, sketching ideas. Marcos loves his red Mustang convertible. Posts about it online like it's his kid. What if it had issues? Nothing permanent, just inconvenient. Tyler's eyes lit up. Like paint stripper on the hood, spelling out something juicy? Or corn syrup in the oil tank to gum up the engine. Hypothetically, of course. Hypothetically, Jack said, nodding. And maybe some fish scraps in the vents, courtesy of Harvey's boat. Make it smell like a gutted cod in there. Gnarly, Tyler said. When? Tomorrow night. Marcos parks behind his office. No cameras, plenty of shadows. The next evening, Laura announced another gym night. Jack watched the tracker as her car headed to Marcos's place. At 2 a.m., he and Tyler met 3 blocks away, dressed in dark jackets, carrying a small bag of supplies. The Mustang gleamed under a streetlight, a symbol of Marcos's arrogance. Tyler worked fast. Paint stripper applied to spell cheater in letters that would show up in daylight. Corn syrup poured into the oil tank, and fish scraps stuffed into the AC vents. This car's gonna have a bad day, Tyler whispered, wiping his hands. Jack nodded, his pulse steady. Good. Let's see how Marcos likes surprises. By morning, Jack's phone buzzed with a call from Marcos, his voice frantic. Jack, man, someone trashed my car last night. Paint's ruined, engine's shot, and it stinks like a dead fish. Any chance you know a good mechanic? Jack feigned concern. That's rough, Marcos. Maybe watch where you park. Or who you hang with. A long pause. What's that supposed to mean? Just saying. Jack replied, his tone even. Portsbury's got eyes. People notice things. He hung up, savoring the silence. The first nail was in place, but Jack was just getting started. Laura and Marcos thought they were clever, but they'd soon learn. A carpenter doesn't rush a job. He builds it to last. Jack Rivera's plan was a precision cut, every step measured to expose Laura and Marcos Delgado without breaking the law. Portsbury, Maine, was a small stage, and Jack knew the town's gossip mill would amplify his move. The Chamber of Commerce dinner at the Anchor restaurant was the perfect setting. A packed room of local business owners, co-workers, and nosy neighbors, all eager for drama. Jack had spent 3 months gathering evidence, and tonight, he'd lay it bare. He enlisted Liam Rodriguez for one final task. Laura's late-night phone calls to Marcos, often made from their bathroom, had given Jack an idea. The old house's ventilation system carried sound like a megaphone. Last night, while Laura thought he was out for a drive, Jack hid in the basement, his phone recording her whispered conversation through the heating ducts. Jack's clueless, she'd said, her voice cold. He's just a carpenter, Marcos. Too simple to see what's right in front of him. We'll take half his assets and start over. The words burned, but they were gold. Undeniable proof. Jack shared the audio with Liam over coffee at his workshop. Can you clean this up? He asked, handing over his phone. Make sure it's clear for a crowd. Liam listened, his jaw tightening. This is brutal, Jack. You sure you want to play this publicly? I'm sure they need to face what they've done, Jack replied, his voice steady. The dinner's tomorrow. I need it ready. Liam nodded, exporting the file to his laptop. I'll boost the audio, cut the static. It'll hit like a sledgehammer. Jack also looped in Tyler Morrison, his construction buddy with a knack for theatrics. Over lunch at a greasy spoon near the docks, Jack outlined the plan. I'll take the mic at the dinner, lay out the evidence, play the recording. But I need you there to make sure Marcos doesn't bolt. Tyler grinned, biting into a burger. I'll block the back door like a linebacker. Nobody's sneaking out. What about Laura? She'll be there, schmoozing with her co-workers, Jack said. She doesn't know I bought a ticket. Thinks I'm working late on a client's cabinets. That's cold, Tyler said, chuckling. I like it. You're playing chess while they're playing checkers. The next evening, Jack parked his truck a block from the Anchor, a waterfront restaurant where Portsbury's elite gathered monthly. He wore a clean button-up, blending in with the crowd of suits and small-town power players. Inside, the room hummed with chatter, the clink of glasses, and the scent of grilled seafood. Laura arrived at 7 o'clock, mingling with her insurance firm colleagues, her laughter loud and forced. Marcos entered 10 minutes later with his real estate crew, scanning the room nervously. When he spotted Jack, his shoulders stiffened, but he kept his distance. Jack bided his time, sipping a soda at a corner table, watching Laura work the crowd. She was in her element, shaking hands, dropping witty remarks. At 7:30, the evening's announcements began, and Jack saw his chance. He approached the mic at the front, tapping it lightly. "Excuse me, folks," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I've got something to say." The room quieted, heads turning. Laura froze mid-conversation, her eyes locking onto Jack, wide with confusion. "For those who don't know me, I'm Jack Rivera, local carpenter. I've lived in Portsbury my whole life, built my business here, and I've always been grateful for this community's support." Polite applause rippled through the crowd, though tension hung in the air. Jack continued, his gaze steady. "Tonight, I need to share something personal. My wife, Laura, has been having an affair with Marcos Delgado." Gasps erupted, chairs scraping as people craned to see Laura and Marcos. Laura took a step forward, her hand raised as if to stop him, but the crowd blocked her path. "I didn't want to believe it," Jack said, "but the evidence doesn't lie. Phone records, credit card charges for hotel rooms, late-night visits to Marcos's apartment." He pulled out his phone, connecting it to the restaurant's sound system. "And then there's this." He pressed play. Laura's voice filled the room, crisp and damning. "Jack's too simple to notice, Marcos. We'll take half his assets, make him look like the bad guy. My lawyer says emotional abuse is easy to sell." The crowd murmured, some whispering, others glaring at Laura, who stood rooted, tears welling. Marcos edged toward the back door, but Tyler, leaning casually against it, shook his head with a grin. Jack let the recording finish, then spoke again. "Laura's been lying to her boss about working late, using company time for her affair. She's planned to paint me as controlling to justify leaving me. But Portsbury deserves the truth. You've all welcomed us, trusted us. I couldn't let this stay hidden." Robert Shipley, Laura's boss, stood, his face red. "This is unacceptable, Laura. We'll be discussing your conduct at work tomorrow." The room buzzed louder, phones already out, snapping photos of Laura's stunned expression and Marcos's failed escape. Marcos shouted, "This is crazy." Jack's lost it. But his voice cracked, and no one seemed convinced. Jack held up his phone again, showing a screenshot of Marcos's social media post, hacked by Liam the night before. "The best things belong to someone else," it read, but not for long. The crowd's reaction was instant. Hisses, laughter, accusations. Jack handed the mic to the restaurant manager, who looked overwhelmed. "I've said my piece," Jack said, walking toward the exit. Laura called after him, her voice breaking. "Jack, stop. You're ruining everything." He didn't turn back. As he stepped into the cool night air, the chaos of the room faded behind him. The board was set, and the pieces were falling exactly where he'd planned. The morning after Jack Rivera's public takedown at the Anchor restaurant, Portsbury, Maine, was alive with the fallout. The Chamber of Commerce dinner had morphed into a spectacle that would fuel the town's rumor mill for years. Jack's calculated exposure of Laura's affair with Marcos Delgado had hit like a tidal wave, leaving both scrambling to salvage their reputations. By dawn, the story had spread from diner counters to dockside chats, every retelling sharpening the edge of their disgrace. Jack woke to an empty house, the silence broken only by the drip of his coffee maker. Laura hadn't come home, texting instead that she needed space and was crashing at a friend's. The GPS tracker on her car told a different story. Her Honda was parked at a budget motel on Route 1, far from Marcos's downtown apartment. Jack sipped his coffee, staring at the blinking dot on his phone. She was dodging, but in a town as small as Portsbury, there were no shadows deep enough to hide. In his workshop, Jack focused on a cherrywood chair for a client, the steady rhythm of sanding keeping his mind sharp. His phone vibrated with notifications, texts from neighbors offering support, a few probing for juicy details, and screenshots of Marcos's hacked social media post, now the talk of the town. "Sometimes you take what's not yours," it read, "and make it yours forever." Jack ignored the chatter. He'd laid his trap, sprung it, and now he'd let the pieces settle. At 10 a.m., Robert Shipley, Laura's boss at the insurance firm, called. "Jack, about last night," he said, his tone clipped. "Laura's been falsifying her hours, claiming overtime while leaving early. I checked her records after your announcement. It's a breach of trust. She's on administrative leave until we investigate further." Jack kept his voice even. "I figured you'd want to know. She's been juggling a lot." "Juggling's one way to put it," Shipley said. "If there's more evidence, it could end her career here." He hung up, and Jack nodded to himself. Laura's professional facade, built on years of charm and competence, was crumbling under scrutiny. By noon, Jack drove to the Driftwood pub to gauge the town's pulse. The bar was packed with regulars, their conversations buzzing with last night's drama. Red, the bartender, slid a bourbon across the counter. "You're the man of the hour, Jack," he said, grinning. "Whole town's talking about how you roasted Laura and Marcos. They're saying she cried all the way out of the anchor." Harvey, the lobsterman, leaned over from his stool. Marcos was at the docks this morning, trying to play it cool. But his brother Tommy chewed him out in front of the crew. Said he's a fool for messing with a married woman. Nobody's buying his misunderstood act. Jack took a sip, letting the warmth settle his nerves. "Sounds like they're feeling the heat." "More than heat," Red said. "Marcos's real estate clients are bailing. 2 canceled meetings today, saying they don't trust a guy who'd pull that stunt. And Laura's office is a ghost town. Her coworkers won't even look at her." Jack nodded, unsurprised. Portsbury's social fabric was tight, and betrayals like this were personal to everyone. He'd counted on that when he chose the dinner for his reveal. The public shaming wasn't just about him. It was about making sure Laura and Marcos faced the town's judgment. His phone buzzed with a text from Laura. "Jack, we need to talk. Please. I'm at the motel on Route 1. Can we meet?" Jack didn't respond. Instead, he called his lawyer, Ellen Carter, a no-nonsense woman who'd handled his business contracts for years. "Ellen, I'm filing for divorce," he said, cutting to the chase. "Laura's been moving money, planning to spin me as the bad guy. I've got proof, recordings, bank statements, the works." Ellen's voice was calm but firm. "Send me everything. If she's been hiding assets or building a false narrative, we'll protect your interests. You've got a strong case, Jack." He emailed the files, phone logs, credit card charges, the damning audio from Laura's call with Marcos. The groundwork was laid to secure his assets and his future. That afternoon, Jack met Tyler Morrison at a hardware store to pick up supplies for a client's deck. Tyler, still grinning from the dinner's chaos, clapped him on the shoulder. "You pulled it off, man. Laura and Marcos are radioactive now. Saw her at the gas station, looking like she hadn't slept. Marcos is hiding out, dodging calls." "Good," Jack said, tossing a box of screws into his cart. "Let them squirm. They thought they could play me for a fool." Tyler lowered his voice. "You think Laura'll try to come crawling back?" "She might," Jack said, "but it's too late. Some things you don't fix, you rebuild from scratch." By evening, Jack was back at the Driftwood, where the mood had shifted to open support. Regulars raised their glasses as he walked in, a quiet nod to his stand. Harvey slid over a beer. "Heard Laura's been calling her friends, begging them to vouch for her. Nobody's biting. They're all on your side, Jack." Jack took the beer, his jaw tight. "I didn't do this for sides. I did it for the truth." Red leaned across the bar. "Truth's got a way of burning bridges in this town. Marcos's business is tanking, and Laura's got a meeting with HR tomorrow. Word is, Shipley's not letting this slide." Jack's phone buzzed again. Another text from Laura. "I'm sorry, Jack. I messed up. Can we just talk?" He stared at the screen, then pocketed it without replying. He'd heard her apologies before. In the early days when he'd confronted her with half-truths she'd danced around. Now, with the town watching, her words were hollow. Driving home, Jack passed Marcos's office. The red Mustang, still reeking from Tyler's sabotage, sat in the lot, a for sale sign taped to the windshield. Jack didn't smile. This wasn't about gloating. It was about reclaiming his life. Laura and Marcos had built their affair on lies, but Jack's foundation was truth, and he'd make sure it stood firm. The dust had settled in Portsbury, Maine, a week after Jack Rivera's explosive reveal at the Anchor restaurant. The town's gossip machine still hummed, but Jack had shifted his focus back to his carpentry workshop, where the steady rhythm of his tools brought clarity. Laura and Marcos Delgado's affair, once a hidden splinter, was now an open wound for them both, exposed to the town's unrelenting scrutiny. Jack, however, felt a quiet resolve. He'd dismantled their lies with precision, and now he was ready to rebuild his life. Laura hadn't returned home since the dinner. The GPS tracker showed her car bouncing between the motel on Route 1 and her sister's place in Portland, a clear sign she was avoiding Portsbury's judgmental stares. Her text to Jack had grown desperate. Pleas for a meeting, promises to explain everything. He left them unanswered. His lawyer, Ellen Carter, had already filed divorce papers, armed with the evidence Jack had meticulously gathered: phone logs, bank statements, and the recorded conversation where Laura plotted to frame him as an abusive husband. Ellen assured him the case was airtight, protecting his business and savings from Laura's schemes. At the Driftwood pub, the town's pulse beat strong. Jack stopped by for a quick lunch, greeted by nods and raised glasses from regulars who saw him as a man wronged but unbroken. Red, the bartender, poured him a soda. Laura's out of a job, he said, leaning in. Shipley fired her yesterday after the HR review. Said her lying about hours and using company time for personal matters was grounds for termination. Jack nodded, unsurprised. She made her choices. Harvey, the lobsterman, joined them, wiping ketchup from his beard. Marcos ain't faring much better. His real estate deals are drying up. Clients don't trust a guy who'd stab a friend in the back. He's selling that Mustang to cover bills. Jack took a bite of his sandwich, letting the news sink in. Marcos's car, once a symbol of his swagger, was now a casualty of his arrogance. The fish-scented sabotage, courtesy of Tyler's handiwork, had been a small but satisfying jab. Jack didn't revel in their downfall, but he felt the weight of justice settling in. That afternoon, Tyler Morrison swung by the workshop, hauling a stack of lumber for a client's porch. "Town's still buzzing," he said, stacking boards. "Laura's been calling around, trying to spin a story about you being controlling. Nobody's buying it. Too many people heard that recording." "Let her talk," Jack said, measuring a plank. "Truth's out. Words won't change it." Tyler hesitated, then asked, "You holding up okay? This can't be easy." Jack paused, setting down his tape measure. "It's not about easy. It's about moving forward. I gave her 8 years. She gave me lies. I'm done carrying that." Tyler clapped him on the shoulder. "You're a better man than most, Jack. What's next?" "Work," Jack said simply. "Clients to serve, projects to finish. Maybe a fishing trip when the divorce is settled." That evening, Jack got a call from Tommy Delgado, Marcos's brother and his business partner. "Jack, I owe you an apology," Tommy said, his voice heavy. "I didn't know how far Marcos had gone. He's my brother, but what he did was wrong. I'm cutting ties with him on the business side." Jack appreciated the gesture. "No hard feelings, Tommy. You've always been straight with me." "I'm trying to keep it that way," Tommy said. "You're a good guy. You didn't deserve this." The call ended, and Jack sat back, the workshop quiet except for the hum of a distant saw. Tommy's words echoed what the town had shown. Portsbury stood with him. The community, once a backdrop to Laura's betrayal, had become his strength, a reminder that trust and reputation mattered here. Laura made one last attempt to reach him, leaving a voicemail late that night. "Jack, I'm sorry. I got lost, made mistakes. I never meant to hurt you. Can we just talk, please? I'll do anything to fix this." Her voice cracked, but Jack heard the same rehearsed tone she'd used for months. He deleted the message and turned off his phone. Some boards were too warped to salvage, no matter how skilled the craftsman. The next day, Jack met Ellen at her office to review the divorce proceedings. Laura's lawyer reached out. Ellen said, flipping through papers. "They're not contesting much. Your evidence, especially that recording, has them cornered. She'll get a small settlement, but your business and assets are secure." Jack nodded, relief washing over him. "What about her claims about emotional abuse?" Ellen smirked. "Dead in the water. No proof, and her credibility shot after your stunt at the anchor. The judge will see through it." As Jack left the office, he drove past the town square, where Portsbury's daily rhythm carried on. Fishermen hauling lobster traps, shopkeepers sweeping sidewalks, kids biking past the library. This was his home, where he'd built a life and a name. Laura and Marcos had tried to tear it down, but they'd underestimated him, mistaking his quiet patience for weakness. Back at his workshop, Jack started a new project, a cedar bench for the community center, a donation he'd promised months ago. As he shaped the wood, each stroke of his plane felt like a step forward. The bench would stand in the town square, a small legacy of his craft and his resilience. Laura and Marcos would fade into Portsbury's gossip archives, their reputations shattered by their own actions. Jack, meanwhile, would keep building, his business, his life, his peace. Driving to the driftwood that evening, Jack felt lighter. The bar was lively, filled with familiar faces who greeted him warmly. Red slid a beer across the counter. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his own glass. Jack clinked his bottle against Red's. "To knowing who you are," he replied. He wasn't a simple carpenter, as Laura had sneered. He was a man who'd faced betrayal, exposed it, and walked away stronger. In Portsbury, where secrets never lasted, Jack had ensured the truth stood tall. "Thinks he's smarter than everyone else," Red said, shaking his head. "But folks around here notice things. Like how your wife's car's been parked behind his office a lot lately." Jack didn't flinch. He'd already suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was like driving a nail into hardwood. Clean, final. "Appreciate the heads up," he said, tossing a few bills on the counter. "Gotta get back to work." Back in his workshop, Jack sat at his bench, staring at the glowing dot on his phone, a GPS tracker he'd ordered online, ready to be installed on Laura's car. He wasn't ready to confront her yet. He needed more than suspicion. He needed evidence that would hold up like a well-built frame. And when the time came, he'd make sure Laura and Marcos knew exactly how wrong they'd been to underestimate a simple carpenter.